Previously on Returned from Hell. Lopez now understands how this world works. In Hell, 80 years passed, but here on Earth, only 10 years went by. Now, the protagonist is determined to solve the problems of the people who have cared for him so deeply. But before we continue, please remember that everything you're about to see is a work of fiction. Do not replicate or attempt any violent or dangerous actions. With that said, let's continue the story. Lopez's intense battle against his clone has finally come to an end. The protagonist acknowledged that he only won because his copy was limited, and that's why he could claim victory. And there they were, his rewards, which, in short, allowed Lopez to regain his original physical condition. The kid is back and he's in his prime. All those marks and scars are from him regaining his physique, including the injuries and traumas he suffered in Hell. He has physically recovered everything he gained down there. Before he returned to Earth, the system showed him a message. Because the king emerged from Hell, some so-called celestial beings sealed the exit to Earth, and now the demons are waiting for their king to come rescue them. Lopez says this has to be a joke. The demons who trampled him and tried to eliminate him so many times now need him. Well, let them rot there. He will never lift a finger to rescue those horrible beasts. And from Hell, in a crystal ball, all the demons watched Lopez leave them to their fate. Now back to Earth. The boy's physical strength was remarkable. It's clear the system was restoring all his powers. But the doctor and his mother couldn't stop watching him. The doctor stated that for this to be possible, Lopez must be an awakened one. There were no signs in the tests he underwent. He's definitely an awakened one. He asks her to take him to the Hunters Association. They'll provide the steps to follow. There's nothing more to be done for the boy here at the hospital. Keep in mind that Lopez still has no idea what it means to be a hunter in this world. So they went home. On the way, the boy was lost in thought. He looked at the city, wondering what on earth happened to the planet in the 10 years he was asleep. This was the kid's neighborhood. Martha asked him to take a seat. She would prepare dinner soon. As he stepped inside, he noticed someone was there. He couldn't remember who this woman was. We'll call her Lucia. Martha asked the girl why she hadn't answered her calls. Then Lopez remembered who she was. The girl was acting rebellious. She was leaving without saying a word. The protagonist thought about how 80 years had passed and he had forgotten he had a younger sister. Lucia told him he looked good, unlike her, who had been struggling these past few days. So she was heading out of the house. But then someone knocked on the door. Trouble had returned for Martha. It was Tops and Yajo. They were back to collect their payment. Lopez thought this was a good thing. It was time to clean house. The men were furious and were planning to break down the door. The girl was ready to leave. After all, she had to work to pay off those debts. She stepped out and left the door wide open like it was nothing. The guys had no idea who she was. They assumed she must be Martha's daughter. Now was the time to settle scores, the guy thought. The lady apologized, explaining she had been very busy and couldn't answer them. But the guy dismissed her excuses, claiming that those paltry sums wouldn't be enough to pay off her debts. Lopez was angry. This wasn't going to end here. Tops entered, having been thinking about Lucia. And just then, Yajo stumbled at his feet. The guy warned him to watch out for the cripple. He had gotten stronger. The kid assured them he was happy. They saved him the trouble. Tops said they were there for their payment and wouldn't leave without at least half. But Lopez grabbed him by the face, shutting him up. He would give him a little slap. He didn't want his mother to see what he could do to those cockroaches. Still, the boy was hitting Tops in the face with slaps. The big guy was barely hanging on, just lost his teeth. Logically, the guy wasn't going to stand still or give up, so he grabbed a wooden chair, screaming that a cripple like Lopez would pay for what he did. But the boy kept smashing his face. The difference in strength was staggering. Tops fell to the floor from the force of the blow. Yajo wouldn't let the boy off easy. This was personal. He would eliminate the kid if necessary. The protagonist quickly grabbed the guy's hand. And it broke, as he declared that hand was the one that hit his mother. Now he had both of them really subdued. Tops swore the kid would pay. He had no idea who he was messing with. Lopez assured them he could save them the trouble by eliminating them once and for all. Martha shouted at him not to do it. It wasn't worth getting his hands dirty, and the mobsters were leaving that place. The guys ran out before the kid could come back for them. Now they were in the car. The guys couldn't believe how that kid from the hospital became so powerful. Top said the worst part was he had been in a coma for 10 years. It didn't make sense. Now they had to think of what to tell their boss. They needed time to come up with a plan to return. But just then, they crossed paths with Lucia, back at the kids' house. Martha was explaining how they had to go into debt and sell several things in the house to pay the bills. She had to borrow money from the banks. The interest skyrocketed, and Lucia dropped out of school to work and help with household expenses. Now she had 2 jobs. Her daughter wasn't studying, and lately, she was drifting away from her. Lopez insisted the girl needed to go back to school, and Martha agreed. But she had neglected her daughter while focusing on the boy's recovery. The protagonist said he caused them a lot of trouble. It wasn't worth them carrying that burden. Martha reminded him that they were family. Lopez knew he had many things to do. Suddenly, the phone rang. Lopez answered to see what was going on. Turned out to be Tops. They had Lucia, and with her, their debts would be settled. The guy brought the girl here. Tops said if they didn't want anything to happen to her, they could also bring 100 million wons. With that, they could let her go free. If Lopez tried anything violent, Lucia would pay the price. The protagonist was furious. Martha didn't know what was happening. He told his mom he needed to take care of something and would be back soon. Martha told him to be careful, please. Lopez wasn't stupid. He understood the consequences of his actions. This wasn't hell. A system mission appeared. Lopez told his mom not to worry. She could stay calm. The boy walked away, needing to choose the system's mission. It turned out he first had to select a skill to undertake this mission. So he thought it over, and he knew which new skill to pick. The mobsters arrived at the building. Yajo wondered if Lopez could follow them to this place. Tops reassured him not to worry. They had his sister as leverage. The elevator was overloaded with energy. Tops knew this was bad. From the shadows appeared a figure. It was none other than the protagonist, and the big guy was terrified. Finally, Lopez found his prey. Assuring them he had come for his payment, there was no reason to panic. Now they explained the skill the boy chose called Shadow Spectre. This skill is mainly used to locate enemies. It's like opening a shadow portal that tracks the enemy through the blood the boy obtained from hitting Tops. With that bloodied piece of fabric, he should be able to find him. That's how he could quickly arrive here. Yajo tried to punch the kid, but Lopez dodged swiftly. He grabbed him by the face and slammed him against the walls. None of these men were awakened. Next was the biggest and angriest of them all. But the elevator finally reached its destination. Tops yelled at his buddies that they had an intruder. Everyone needed to attack him right away. The protagonist landed a solid hit to shut him up. The guy fell to the ground, knocked out. Now the boy had to deal with this whole gang of thugs. Now that no one was watching, Lopez wouldn't hold back against them. The boy started by eliminating them with a powerful kick. His physique combined with the shadow skill gave him an overwhelming advantage over the enemy. In less than a minute, everyone in that room was completely taken out. Now he finally found her. He freed Lucia and told her to go home. The girl asked Lopez what he planned to do. The boy told her to be careful and not even think about coming back. Maybe the cleanup needed to be more thorough. This building had several floors. Everyone was eliminated by Lopez. The boy took care of all of them. He was getting tired. All the guys he encountered were just thugs, nothing that matched the leader. He needed to clean house quickly with all these guys. Speaking of the leader, this big guy was the leader. He received a call from his brother who was annoyed. He didn't like being called, but his brother insisted there was a monster sweeping them away. No choice. He had to go see what was happening. This was the last floor, and everyone had been eliminated. Now Lopez was here in the boss's office. The protagonist knows that this is one of the heads of the place, but then the wall was destroyed. The gigantic brother appeared. He was so fast that he grabbed the kid by the face and slammed him against the ground. The guy was very angry. This scrawny kid had caused chaos while he was gone. Lopez couldn't imagine that people like this existed. Now that he thought about it, his mom wasn't surprised by his strength. She knew something had changed on Earth, but she didn't think that people like this were common. The kid activated his shadow ability. Let's call him Yops, he's not stupid. He decides to back off since awakened ones with abilities are rare. The protagonist quickly got up and brushed off the dust. Lopez asks Yops if he's supposedly an awakened one. The guy responds that he would destroy this kid with a single blow. The guy was increasing his muscle mass, he was a sea-level awakened one. But he was still far from Lopez. With one hit, Lopez knocked his teeth out. He slammed him against the walls. The guy was stunned. He was taken down like a tower with just one blow. He couldn't allow this. It couldn't happen to him. Unfortunately, Yops wasn't aware of who he was facing. Lopez kicked him against the wall, stating that while he was gone, his family was hunted by Yops and his goons. The guy thinks that Lopez is a high-level awakened one. If he doesn't do something, he's going to die. So he shouted for Lopez to let him talk. They could reach an agreement. If it was about money, his debt was settled, and he had no problem. The kid asks where they supposedly had the money hidden. Yops indicates that they had everything stored in a safe. The kid says that's fine. If it's free money, he's not going to turn it down. So the protagonist wants the money, and Yops runs to escape with his life. He tells the other guy that if he doesn't go, he'll die too. Time passed. Now the guys were hiding here, nursing the pain they were left with. Yops was, of course, furious, claiming he would eliminate the protagonist and his entire family. But Lopez appeared behind him, stating that he didn't give him the password for that safe. The kid made it clear that he had now marked him. No matter where he went or hid, Lopez would always be able to find him. Now let's move to the terrace. Using his portal ability, he took all the money from the safe. He grabbed about 532 million. Not bad at all, and he wanted to know how long he could live with that. He was already thinking about what apartments he could buy. And so a new day arrived. Lopez started spending the money he had acquired. First, he decided to get a new phone. Not just for himself. He needed to buy one for the whole family. That's how he arrived home. And he left a little surprise for his sister. Now he needed to go talk to an old friend. The kid went straight to a restaurant to meet with Tomas. The guy was right there waiting for Lopez. The protagonist greeted him, and Tomas realized he had changed a lot since the last time he visited him. Then they started eating whatever they wanted. Tomas asked the kid what he was planning to dedicate himself to. The kid had a question first. With 500 million, can you buy a nice apartment? Tomas knows a lot about all kinds of businesses. He says that apartments in the capital are very expensive. With 500 million, he could afford a small one on the outskirts of the city. So Lopez asked him how much one in the city would cost if it were really big. The kid said that with 2 billion he could get a good one. Things are getting more and more expensive. The world has changed a lot since they were kids. Lopez thinks that 500 million won't get him anywhere. Tomas asks the kid if it's true what Ms. Martha says. Is Lopez really an awakened one? The protagonist responds that no one has explained to him what it means to be an awakened one. Then he will explain it to him. Time passed, and after eating, the kid said it happened several years ago when portals started appearing in the sky spontaneously and randomly. At first, the government kept it under control, but monsters began to emerge from those portals, inevitably suffering human and economic losses. The first confrontations were a massacre against the armed forces. No type of weapon worked against those things. The first months were tough for the army and the country, but it didn't take long for them to discover that they could be defeated with their own weapons. So they quickly started making weapons using the monsters as raw materials. Those who could use those weapons were called awakened ones. Tomas affirms that this is what happens with Lopez. He's an awakened one. The kid shows him his foldable phone, bragging about how he's up to date with the latest technology. But Tomas says it's not a big deal. There are already about 3 newer models out. Regardless, the important thing is that awakened ones stand out because of their immense physical strength. Over time, Lopez can significantly increase his power. The kid asks how much they pay awakened ones. But suddenly a portal opened very close to them. This is a huge problem for both of them. They were literally beneath those portals. Monsters were ready to descend and attack. These were the same creatures from the first waves that appeared. These monsters were ready to eliminate these people. A normal person has no chance in this situation. All they have left is to try to hide. Tomas says this is serious. A portal has ruptured. The kid thought he had never seen those beasts. They definitely weren't from hell. The kid stomped down hard to grab a piece. First, he wanted to know how the enemy defended itself. Then the kid took a run up and threw a rock with all his might. The rock smashed against the creature's shoulder. But Lopez took note of the detail. Turns out these monsters had a shield. Tomas reminded him that normal weapons don't work, and the protagonist understood why. This monster responded by attacking the kids. Its speed was obviously much higher than that of a normal human. Tomas thought they were done for. He didn't know the level Lopez possessed. And with no problem at all, one hit was enough to take it down. These two tried to surprise him, but Lopez was above them. In an instant, he eliminated 3 without much trouble. Tomas was impressed. For a person to handle them, they must be above B rank. However, he had to focus on helping the people. Time passed. These creatures had their sights set on all these people. They were in grave danger of dying. But Tomas yelled to everyone that he knew a safe evacuation route. So he asked everyone to follow him. Even so, more ogres were arriving. They were blocking Tomas's path. With them in the middle, they were completely trapped. They attacked people without a second thought. And a little girl got caught in the crowd. Then some began to be eliminated. This big one was about to take out the girl, but Tomas managed to save her from the creature. When all of a sudden, like lightning, Lopez arrived to eliminate the monsters in this area. The big one was taken out in a second, and the protagonist told Tomas to run while he covered his back. So the two of them would do this job together. From around a corner, a crazy guy was recording for social media. Let's call him Luzu, a content creator doing everything possible to capture the whole fight. The protagonist was suddenly surrounded by 3 monsters. Inevitably, he received a strong blow that slammed him against a car. Seaman recorded everything, and people thought that was the end for that brave kid. Lopez was about to become known by everyone. Now let's check in with Tomas, who finally, most people were taking the sewer route to escape. The kid knew he had fulfilled his mission, but he remembered that his friend was in the middle of the fight. The wisest thing was to go back and see how he could help. Let's return to Lopez, who was once again surrounded by ogres. This big guy wanted to land the finishing blow. He smashed the ground with his weapon, but the protagonist dodged it without much trouble. In an instant, the kid eliminated another ogre. Seaman shouted that the brave warrior had come back to life to take revenge. Lopez assured that in these few minutes, he had been able to increase his power thanks to the pressure of this fight. Pain didn't exist for him, so he would eliminate each ogre one by one. The charge began, and just as expected, the ogres started falling. Seaman's audience urged him to get closer. They wanted to see the fight up close. Then a donation came in from someone, stating that after this 5 million, they would donate another 5 million if the kid was able to get closer. The guy couldn't believe it. 5 million was a lot. Even if one of those ogres catches him, they won't be of any use. He needs to think about how to get closer without getting eliminated. Lopez thought that this could get complicated if he doesn't hurry. He's wasting too much energy without considering the variables that could arise. He needs to finish them off quickly and more efficiently. Seaman was going crazy over all that money. Someone else donated 20 million and would give him another 50 million if he could get a picture of it. But finally, the boy has taken care of most of the monsters. They're not stupid. They know they're dealing with a dangerous human. Lopez can feel that fear. The hellish monsters never felt fear. Seaman thought he could make a lot of money if he just took a little risk. The boy was right in front of him. He was so close to achieving it. The ogres weren't thinking about giving up to anyone. Lopez said that his power might be diminished, Maybe he underestimated these things too much. Suddenly, Tomas caught the fool Saman. He yelled at him that he couldn't be here. He needed to hide quickly, so he would take him away before he got killed for being an idiot. But Saman kept thinking about getting more money, as his phone had fallen and he knew he wouldn't be able to go back to get it. However, before they could leave, a gigantic ogre blocked their path. Saman fainted, and Tomas yelled at him to wake up if he didn't want the monsters to eat him. The big guy was thinking about eliminating the boy, but Lopez quickly destroyed the enemy. Tomas was impressed by what he saw because it turned out that the boy had completely wiped them out. Lopez liked knowing that he didn't have a coward for a friend. Alright, guys, we're going to wrap it up here for today. This series will be made up of several short chapters. But remember, if you want to keep reading it, you can find the details in the responses to the pinned comment below. If you enjoyed the video, a like and a nice comment would really help me out, so I can keep bringing more content. That's all, take care, and see you later.